Senate Republicans are expected to block a bill that would create an independent commission to investigate the January 6th Capitol insurrection. Democrats are pushing forward with a procedural vote despite the threat of a Republican filibuster, which would end the chances of any investigation. Both parties called for a 9/11-style commission in the immediate aftermath of the riot, but Republicans have since reversed course, shifting focus toward the 2022 midterms. This comes as Republicans formally unveil their $928 billion counteroffer to President Biden's infrastructure plan. The plan includes $257 billion in new spending. That's less than one-fifth the amount proposed by the White House. On top of baseline spending, $506 billion would go toward more traditional infrastructure like roads and bridges. It allots $98 billion for public transit. President Biden says he'll meet with Republicans next week. He faces increasingly impatient Democrats who are wary of Republicans obstructing any proposal coming from the White House. That is something Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has said was his top priority. The Labor Department says unemployment claims fell to 406,000 last week. That's another pandemic low, the fourth in 4 weeks. The president touted economic progress during a speech in Cleveland Thursday. He used the news to pitch his American jobs and families plans.
I believe this is our moment to rebuild an economy from the bottom up and the middle out, not a trickle-down economy from the very wealthy. That has never benefited people who are at this college or any other place where they're trying to make a living.
Mr. Biden is set to unveil an ambitious $6 trillion budget proposal for 2022 on Friday. It would include the highest sustained levels of federal spending since World War II. For more on this, let's bring in Caitlin-Huey Burns, Natasha Korecki, and Alayna Treene. Caitlin is CBSN's Washington reporter. Natasha is a Politico White House correspondent, and Alayna is a congressional reporter for Axios. Welcome. Good to have you all. Natasha, let me start with you. With the backdrop of infrastructure negotiations, President Biden is about to unveil that $6 trillion budget proposal. What does it say about his priorities, and how will it impact the national debt?
Well, it again is going to have a huge impact on the national debt. Democrats have long said, go ahead and criticize us, Republicans. You didn't seem to care much about this when, you had the White House and both chambers of Congress. So we're expecting that debate to happen, but at the same time, Democrats have their talking points ready. This new budget proposal is going to come out tomorrow. He's talking about a safety net, creating a safety net. And he has long talked about, and he touched on this today in Ohio, just some of the same basic framework, which is we are going to really build up an economy that relies on, the wealthy putting in more of their fair share and, bringing up the middle class and the working class. And, we saw him talk a lot about that today. I think what we're going to see tomorrow and moving forward is this continued messaging from Biden, which is, there's dignity in work. And, even though there is a safety net, and he is, really condoning that, and Democrats have been pushing him for that, he's also trying to make it clear that, he's not just interested in handouts. He's interested in helping those who are working, and supporting those who are working, and doing things that will help boost the working class and middle class, allow them to get back to work, help with health care. I'm sorry, not health care, with daycare, with different child care necessities, with, different back to work programs, giving family leave, child tax credits, and that type of thing. All kinds of, benefits that are going to be more directed at, average folks. And again, he says he doesn't want to vilify, millionaires and so forth. And in fact, he specifically said that today. On the other hand, he's also made clear that he doesn't think the wealthy have paid their fair share, and that he is going to, kind of restructure the economy, and that this is the moment to do it. And in a way that will have the wealthy giving more.
Right. He really has been consistent in that messaging about the wealthy paying and the corporate, taxes being the place to fund some of these plans. But Caitlin, when it comes to infrastructure, Republicans say that they are negotiating in good faith. Yet Senate Minority Leader McConnell has said that his focus is halting the president's agenda. So how long is this negotiation process going to go on?
That's right. Well, there is some political incentive for Republicans to get on board with some infrastructure proposals because, broadly speaking, it's popular. I mean, voters like the idea of investing in infrastructure. The country hasn't done it in a long time. It's long been elusive to get legislation on it, as the Trump administration proved. So there is some political incentive for Republicans to get something out of this. But the two sides are so far apart still on the scope of what the package would look like. They don't even agree on what infrastructure actually is. Republicans want to narrow the definition to its traditional form. The Biden administration thinks that investments are needed beyond what we traditionally think of as infrastructure. And they are also wide apart on how they would pay for this proposal. Republicans today in their plan say that they want to repurpose some COVID funds. The Biden administration says that those funds are already allocated. And there needs to be an increase in the corporate tax rate. And you heard today Biden, when he was speaking in Cleveland, kind of put that pressure on, saying who doesn't want to, raise taxes on the wealthier corporations. So kind of trying to put that pressure there. But there is this question, this kind of feeling among Democrats up here on Capitol Hill of whether Republicans, whether it's worth it to go the bipartisan route when they have the other option of reconciliation. And when they have the option to kind of use their power in Washington to push forward with these bold, big programs that they've wanted to do, especially with the midterms on the horizon and the uphill climb that Democrats have in keeping the House and the Senate. A lot of Democrats up here just want to go now on these proposals. And there's also this question of what the Republican support would actually be. You do have Republicans working on this bill, this proposal with Shelley Moore Capito, but there aren't necessarily 10 of them. There's a group of them, but remember, to get anything passed through that filibuster, you need 10 Republicans to support it. So Biden indicated that he wants to go to the bipartisan route, but you kind of heard him today saying that at some point this has to reach some kind of conclusion.
All right, speaking of the filibuster, Alayna, two of the Senate's staunchest filibuster defenders are urging Republicans not to use it to stop the January 6th commission. Is that likely?
It's not, Elaine. I think we've seen now over the past several weeks that Republicans are, at least most Republicans are not in favor of supporting the current 9/11 style January 6th commission that passed the House. And that really came from Mitch McConnell last week. He made a floor speech really saying that he is against the commission. He thinks it's a partisan effort. And the arguments we're hearing from a lot of Republicans on this is that it's, they don't need to have it. It's duplicative of other investigations that are happening in different committees and with the FBI. They're also arguing that it could spill over into an election year, and I think that's the real one. A lot of Republicans saying many reasons why they aren't for this commission, but the private and real argument is the political, accountability that lands on them if it passes. And so it does look like they're going to have a vote on this January 6th commission. It doesn't look like it's going to pass. And the filibuster is the big thing here. And of course, a lot of Democrats arguing that we should blow up the filibuster. This could be the issue. So far, it doesn't seem like it. I spoke with Senator Joe Manchin, one of, the key senators who is potentially against the filibuster, and he said that he doesn't think that, even if Republicans do oppose this bill and filibuster the January 6th commission, that he doesn't think that they should blow up the filibuster over it. And so if this vote does fail today and they do fail to get 10 Republicans on board, it won't go through.
I mean, Caitlin, what are Republicans doing behind the scenes to stop this commission?
Well, I think the big turning point came last week when Mitch McConnell came out in opposition to the bill. And being up here talking to lawmakers, you could feel that that gave them either the political cover to vote against it as well, and you know, certainly didn't provide them with the incentive to vote for it if they were inclined to do so. And Alana's exactly right. The political implications of this are kind of hovering over everything. The idea of having this commission go, it would wrap up according to the rules by the end of the year, but still it would keep Trump in the spotlight. And that's something that Republicans just don't want to do necessarily at this point, because they want to be focused on the Biden administration and in going against the Biden administration's policies. At the same time, they still have to attract Trump voters, and they're afraid of alienating them, especially heading into the midterms. So politically, they think that this commission just doesn't make sense for them. But there really, you know, is this sense here on the Hill that this is such an uphill climb. I mean, even Susan Collins, for example, who is supportive of the commission and had been working on an amendment to address some of the concerns, told reporters today that, you know, there are just Republicans who are not going to support this either way. And it doesn't look like, you know, this is going to really change anything. And it's also important to note that, you know, having Officer Sicknick's mother and his longtime girlfriend up here on Capitol Hill trying to lobby senators, a lot of them, you know, met with her, listened to them, and heard, you know, their case. But that doesn't seem to be swaying any additional hearts and minds up here on this issue.
It's interesting because it was a powerful statement that we reported on yesterday, released by Officer Sicknick's mother, clearly designed to lay out her concern with this resistance to a 1/6 commission. On another topic, Natasha, Politico has reporting on former President Trump's efforts towards a potential 2024 bid, but not all Republicans are happy about his plans. What can you tell us about that?
Well, right. Not a lot of Republicans are happy with Trumpism, but we've seen a lot of, you know, struggle within the party defining itself. This is obviously a key moment for the Republican Party as they're going forward. They have to figure out who they are, what they want to be. But that has mostly ended up being positioning themselves behind Trump. You know, we had a story today just talking about the very, you know, if you're a Bush in Texas, what do you have to do? You have to bow down to Trump. We also had a story recently this week talking about Newt Gingrich meeting with Trump in advance of the 2022 midterms, and, you know, Trump trying to be very involved in crafting some kind of policy, as they call it, Trumpified policy initiatives of, you know, what the messaging will be. How will Republicans message? I mean, as much as Republicans say they want to turn their backs on Trump, they still very much think they need him. So that's kind of what we're seeing right now. The two of them did meet. We don't have a ton of details on what those actual, you know, policy details would be. However, you know, it is quite significant that much is even happening. You know, their Republicans are recognizing they need to do something. This is an opportunity for them. You know, traditionally that this midterm elections, that is when, you know, the opposition party that's not in the White House ends up taking Congress and winning over the House at least. And they see an opportunity here. And it's just it's an interesting marriage that's happening now with Newt Gingrich and Donald Trump. And we're seeing more and more, you know, Republicans coming on board, but also we're seeing a lot of different struggles within, you know, different parties, state parties in various states, in Arizona and in Nevada. And I mean, you name the state, Georgia, South Carolina, a lot of these, they're having identity crises and trying to figure out how to move forward and what's the best way to do it. But again, a lot of the paths end up always going back through Trump world.
Finally, Alayna, a number of cities across the U.S. are reversing cuts to police departments after upticks in crime. Now, defund the police was a rallying cry for a number of Democrats advocating racial justice last summer. What are the political implications of this reversal?
Well, Elaine, defund the police is a really tough issue for Democrats. A lot of Democrats actually don't like defund the police, at least the phrase and the framing it's been used politically, it's been hurtful to a lot of those moderate Democrats in certain districts across the United States. And we're seeing, we have seen over the past year a lot of places like Austin and Seattle cut their police budgets as part of defund the police, and simultaneously crime rate has gone up. Now, it's unclear if those have been linked. Police departments are trying to figure that out. Partially, a lot of them are saying it could be related to the coronavirus pandemic, but we are seeing spikes in crime. And so we are seeing some places like New York City with Mayor Bill de Blasio, Oakland, California, some other cities starting to put some of those reapportioned funds back into their police departments to try and help mitigate what's happening with the crime rates. And so politically, I think it's going to be interesting to see how Democrats use this. A lot of Democrats on the left, still a huge issue for them, still something that they are incorporating in a lot of their campaign messaging. Other Democrats, not so much. And so I think it'll be really big sign how much of this is used as a messaging, at least from a party perspective, as we get closer to the midterms. And so I think that's more of a wait and see approach that we should be watching for.
Yeah, definitely. It will be interesting, especially for those moderate Democrats, as you said, that did not like that phrase, defund the police, to begin with. It'll be interesting to see how they, in fact, message around that reversal in funding here. Caitlin-Huey Burns, Natasha Korecki, and Alayna Treene, thanks to you all. Really appreciate it.